Another thing I was fascinated with this particular piece was the shadow.
I think one of the things that is striking about this is I think of sort of hip hop in its most traditional form. It's about solo expression, and you maintain that. We see you really be yourselves as movers, but you've also really explored the duet. Could you talk a little bit about how you come together and investigate how close you can be, those kinds of things?
To work together, it's first of all, it's just an encounter. I met her on the training, and I love aesthetic of dance. For me, movements talk to me at the first impression. Mm-hmm. And from that moment, I developed the aesthetic of dance with the dramaturgy or the narrative of where we want to explore. But technicity of movement, this is where I come from. I think this is where I hold on. So I build with aesthetic of movement. When I met her, I really loved something that you don't see so much in the hip-hop scene, that she comes from the classical world. You can see it. The lines are very beautiful, and she can break these lines with something which is a twist hip-hop in it. So I love to develop that with Honji, and we get into a lot, first of all, into movements, and we exchange. I try to give a lot of information from my side as a b-boy, and I mean, I explore many different styles of dance, and she gives me her vocabulary too, so we exchange a lot with that.
So, Honji, I'm wondering if there are times when you feel like we should try to move more alike, that we should look more alike in doing the same movements, or if you feel like you work to maintain your own movement background and keep it in there. So if, for example, if you're in unison, are you trying to look more the same, or are you trying to keep your differences?
I think what I'm focusing on is to be in the same vibe, in the same flow as him. So it's not about the movement. It's just about the energy to be together. Because to copy his movement, obviously, it's not so easy. And as well, vice versa. I think it's as well. It's more interesting, I think, that as a dancer, everybody has such a different morphology. Everybody has a great different way of moving, and I think it's very interesting to see not just like similar and everybody the same thing and copying like one each other, but rather than finding their way of expressing, their way of exploring and showing their movements, but with the same energy that it can be in whole ensemble.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned using a dramaturg or thinking about the how you put the evening together, and I think that is something that's so striking about this, that you have found the ways to move from scene to scene. I'm thinking of, for example, after your monologue and the wiping off of the potential spit that you could have after yelling, and then how that informs the next section of movement. Could you just talk about how you had all, I'm imagining, I've made this up, they haven't told me this. I'm imagining that you had these different ideas and different sections of movement, and then you had to think about what order we should see them and how the work should unfold over the course of the evening. Could you talk a little bit about that?
The source is actually that we focus on the dance, on the technique and everything, and all the play comes around it. Once we created choreographies or sections of choreographies, for example, like a little bit more contact stuff, we start to break it down by improvising around it. So we add like requisite, items. We start to put ourselves in different contexts. We play different musics as well to give us different atmospheres. Sometimes faster music, sometimes very slow music, and it really influences the whole play and the whole choreography and the movement. And from that on, we start to just isolate on, for example, text work, interviews. It's from interviews. I'm interviewing him, he's interviewing me. We're talking at the same time, and we had this idea of just talking at the same time because it's like almost like being in a couples therapy, talking, everybody wants to talk, and about, it's about my opinion, it's about his opinion. And somehow it got to that we talked at the same time as well, and you know, all this mix, we just throw it in, we throw a lot of things, ideas away to clean up a little bit. And at the end, it just, by moving a lot, by trying and layering, this is how we actually find the connections.
I wonder if you could say something about the great moment of when you're talking at the same time. And lots of people who go into dance because they feel like the movement is the best way to express themselves, which you do so beautifully. But then you also give us this other thing. Could you talk about, like, did it take some kind of courage to bring that, to use your voice, to bring your personality into the work in a different kind of way?
Yeah, of course, it's not easy for us to do something which is not about dance, because we may be good in dance, but to talk is something very different, and be on stage and talking and expressing. But we felt this, it came natural. There's the line of technique and dance and vocabulary that we have to use, and there's the line of what do we want to say in this performance. So we always work with these two lines in parallel, and we did a lot of improvisation, a lot of things, a lot of material. We create so many content. And I think a work like this or any other work that has been done, it's a print, and it's a print of art in one moment, one precise moment. And for us, at that moment, we wanted to express this cultural identity, because this is where we were at that moment. I was moving to Berlin, and I didn't know if I'm living in Germany now, I'm South France, or if I was living in Barcelona now. We talk in English. It was very, at the beginning I didn't speak good English. It was very complicated for me to exchange with Honji. So it was a tricky moment. And this was for us an automatism, kind of, you know. And it was a print, and 5 years ago we said we wanted to express cultural identity. We wanted to talk about that. We wanted to use the voice because it gives another impact into the, not only dancing. We wanted to, I like to say things in our performance. Our last performance is the same. It talks a lot about situation, and it's very connected to our social environment.
I mean, I think what's interesting particularly interesting about what you're saying is that at that moment in time, that felt like what was happening in your lives, and so of course it informed the piece. So now you've moved past it in your personal life, but it's still in the theatrical world you've created, which, I mean, so it means you have to sort of keep revisiting that moment in time. This is a question about how, I think, a little bit about what you were saying about the rehearsal and investigation process, and working with the artist who designed the tree. What's the conversation like? We know we want this other thing on stage, and then how the layers of complication that come about. Could you talk a little bit about what that conversation was like?
It's a collaboration with Ida Raven, the scenograph, and I liked the idea at the very beginning. I wanted to have a volume on stage, and because I was developing this light when we throw the lights to each other, and I wanted to have red lights like the blossom that I could catch and pass it around and try to involve more. It's not just to have a tree on stage as well, it's how to globalize and to involve into our story and what we're expressing. So
it does. I mean, it gives us a sense of passage of time also, because it changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And after, like she said, it's not like we want to tell a precise story of what the tree is going to be or what's going to say. You know, it's just like, for us, it's just an energy and a layer that we use into our performance. But that's it.